Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Math with Mr. W. Our topic for today are SAN questions. Probably don't even talk about SAN questions. It's something that you can start asking in fourth grade. What is SAN questions? Well, S stands for sometimes, A stands for always, and N stands for never. This is an extension of true or false. Things that are true or false are easier to understand because things that are just happen because that's always happened, then we can say true. 3 times 6 is 18. True. 3 times 9 is 26. False. Those are things that are true and false. But now math has some things that are not always so true or false, but they sometimes occur and sometimes they don't. And this is in the geometry. In geometry, we have things like this. And we talked about this the last time when we were talking about this quadrilateral story. We had the party with quadrilaterals. And what I've done here is I've just taken a look at the very small part, the middle of the picture. I've got the parallelograms and everything else that's a parallelogram because they have two sets of parallel sides. And they are the rectangles, the rhombuses, and the squares. Now, if I asked the student, is a square a parallelogram? The answer is always. It's always a parallelogram. Because all the rules of a square fall inside the circle of parallelograms. It has to be true all the time. Square can't get outside of it. But now, if I ask the opposite, a parallelogram is a square. Aha. Not always. But sometimes it's a square. Sometimes a parallelogram is a square. Even sometimes it's a rectangle. Sometimes it's a rhombus. But it's not always one of these. As you can see, there's space here that indicates that they're not what they are other than parallelogram. So we have places that are here that are just parallelograms, but not special parallelograms, such as a rhombus, a rectangle, and a square. So now we find the word sometimes. So it's really kind of a neat thing to think about. Things can be not always, but just sometimes. So a parallelogram is sometimes a rectangle, but a rectangle is always a parallelogram. Now, is a square a rhombus or a rectangle? Of course it is, always, because a square is totally enclosed in those circles. So it's always those. But if I ask, is a rectangle a square? Sometimes it is, because you can see there's a space here that are just left over for rectangles, and there's a place here that's occupied by only squares. They happen to be rectangles as well, but they're also squares. So a specific type of rectangle, a specific type of rhombus that makes them a square. So, and remember this, the circle outside of this was trapezoid, the word trapezoid. Now, is a parallelogram a trapezoid? It has two pairs of parallel sides. Well, if it has two pairs of parallel sides, does it have one pair of parallel sides? Well, yeah, it's inside the field of trapezoids. But a trapezoid's not a parallelogram. It sometimes is a parallelogram when it has another set of parallel sides. And then outside of that, we had just the quadrilaterals. So we can ask, is a quadrilateral any one of these? Yeah, sometimes it is, but not always. Not always. So when we get in geometry, true and false doesn't always hold. We have sometimes, always, and never. See you next time on Math with Mr. W.